Dr. Shoemaker's data set of 10,000 biotoxin ill, 95% were genetically susceptible. So they were born with the statistical likelihood to go into chronic inflammatory responses. If you're born with those genes, it's not if but when you're going to get into exposure and highly likely trigger CIRS.
If you've been told that activated charcoal, bentonite clay, zeolite, or chlorella can detox mold toxins, you've been misled. These popular remedies don't actually bind or remove the biotoxins driving chronic illness, and in some cases, they might even make things worse. In this episode, we uncover the one miracle medicine that can detoxify the biotoxins behind a hidden condition called Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome, or CIRS. In this episode, you're going to learn what is the biggest myth in mold detoxing and why most binders aren't doing what you think, what CIRS really is, and why it's missed by 99% of doctors. There's a reason you're still sick, and there's a way out. All right, Doc, thank you for joining the show. I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions now, all right?
Yes, sir.
You feel good?
Ready.
You want to go?
Ready.
Okay, let's go. What is the most surprising thing that people don't know about mold illness?
Probably the neuroinflammatory effects and its ability to drive perceived mood disorders. I often tell patients, you don't have a spiritual crisis or a personality disorder. You have inflammatory cytokines making you feel a certain way: depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive intrusive thoughts, trauma, etc. So really owning that therapists, psychiatrists, primary care docs need to have CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, on their list of what could be causing depression, suicidal ideation, anxiety, etc.
Okay. Well, we're going to get into that one. I like that one. Someone who's been chronically ill for years comes to see you. What's one piece of advice from the get-go that you would give them?
Yeah, you got to switch healthcare from what you have to why you have. So you know this in therapy and or conventional model, we really just label a constellation of symptoms. So at our clinic, we're going to focus on why headache. I was trained to understand well over 100 biochemical reasons for headache, and then I'm not going to use guesswork. Those are my healthcare guesstimates. It's called a differential diagnosis. Then I need validated labs and imaging. There's a lot of fad labs in the holistic industry to sort this is or not contributing to your headache. Most of our patient symptoms are multifactorial. So if I help solve and resolve a headache, it's 17 of my 100 guesses that actually hit. The other 83 are not places we're going to spend time, money, and energy on anymore.
Got it.
So it's about setting up that differential diagnosis and letting the objective data tell the doctor and the patient, your guess was right or wrong. And now we're honing in to your underlying causes. Last thing I'll say about that is 10 people have the exact same presenting headache, and you will have 10 different reasons for the exact same symptom. You got to nail Johnny's headache is different than Susie's, is different than Tommy's.
You got to nail it.
You got to nail it. Okay. And it's multifactorial 99% of the time.
99%. What is one surprising disease process that is connected to CIRS?
Yeah, so the hallmark of CIRS is people think it's mold growing inside you or that you have a fungal infection. That's nonsense. It's called CIRS, Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome, because it is self-made innate cytokine storms. Think about the same way COVID is a very real virus, but COVID doesn't kill people. Our self-made nonsensical immune responses to the COVID kill you. You do not fibrose or scar the lungs and need a ventilator from COVID without a molecule called transforming growth factor beta 1, TGF beta 1. That turns soft, flexible yogic lung tissue into stiff fibrotic heart tissue. You do not do that without your immune system. It's the same with vaccine injury. The vaccine was the catalyst, but it's your own immune responses that give you the side effects when you have a bad experience with the vaccine. So with CIRS, I think the unique thing is that it's a cytokine storm, and cytokines don't need passport. They go to every single system, body system, and cause symptoms in the entire body. Hence, its notoriety as a multi-system, multi-symptom illness. So now you're at the dermatologist, you're at the gynecologist, you're at the gastroenterologist, you're at the psychiatrist, at the psychologist, at the acupuncturist, and no one's doing a simple screening to say, maybe it's chronic inflammatory response syndrome.
Which we're going to go into. All right. Rapid fire, semi-rapid fire. We got some good stuff though. Let's go into this. CIRS, our immune system overactivating for some reason. What are the main causes of the some reason? What drives most people with CIRS? And why doesn't my brother have CIRS, but I may? Or my sister have CIRS, or my best friend, but I don't?
You're asking better questions than the healthcare system already. So we're going to break this into about 3 parts. And the first is get out of the liver with all these SNP genes and all this stuff into chromosome 6 from biological mom and biological dad. You have your immune response genetics on chromosome 6. How is your immune system likely to respond, statistically likely to respond to your environment? And that environment includes gluten. So I could have an HLA or human leukocyte antigen in plain English immune response genes that sees gluten as foreign dangerous and will just push out cytokine storms, eventually destroying the intestinal lining in an autoimmune attack. There's an HLA for that. There's an HLA for Crohn's. There's an HLA for Hashimoto's. There's an HLA for type 1 diabetes. There's an HLA for chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So you are primed. I always say Lady Gaga born that way, more likely to get CIRS if you are born with the HLA. Mm-hmm. You are not guaranteed, but you are primed. Now you need a biotoxin exposure. Bio, like the study of nature, biology means nature, toxin means toxin. So we're not talking about Colorado companies dumping mercury into clean Colorado rivers. We're talking about nature toxins, not chemical toxins, not man-made toxins. And the 5 big peer-reviewed published work on that, going well beyond Dr. Shoemaker, who really pioneered the discovery of this illness, but there's other people studying, are cyanobacteria. Those are algae blooms. You guys have those here. A lot of people say, hey, don't go out right now. My dog got sick and Tommy was coughing. Florida is notorious for the red tides. Mm-hmm. Everyone on the East Coast who grew up like me says, don't go clamming right now. It's the red tides, right? Those are algae blooms, and those are called cyanotoxins. Seafood toxin, ciguatera. All Puerto Ricans and Chileans know when to not eat the reef fish. There's a ciguatera outbreak right now. The tourist comes in, eats it, and has raging diarrhea, gets their brain so scrambled from ciguatoxin that hot feels cold and cold feels hot. You'll pick up a jar of refrigerated pickles, drop them on the floor and go, devil pickles. And you'll pick up the broken glass and go, Eric, devil pickles? This is refrigerated glass. I'll say, no, that was boiling hot. That's how neuroinflammatory ciguatera is to the brain. Most people experience it as predominantly diarrhea. That's why when I'm doing an intake, I need to know, were you on a mission trip? Did you go travel with Peace Corps? Were you in the military? Where have you been on this globe? And then we look for, oh, you were recreating in that lake. Do you know there's cyanobacteria, algae blooms there? You were eating that piece of grouper off the coast of Africa. Do you know that has ciguatera in it? So on and so forth. So algae blooms and seafood toxin. Next is a big one. Indoor air quality, water damage building molds and mycotoxins, water damage building bacteria known as actinobacteria. And then what we see as the most inflammatory part of the Parkinson's scenario, sewer gas, poop, caca, doo-doo, shiza, manure. If you have a sewer leak or your cat is pooping in the kitty litter box right next to a return that's going into her HVAC, that is a biotoxin called endotoxin. And those come from gram-negative bacteria in the stool, in the fecal material. And then finally, Lyme tick co-infection. So there's Lyme, but then there's also co-infection like Bartonella and Babesia that can also come off tick-borne illness. And then lastly, recluse spider venom. So the brown recluse, whose epicenter is in Oklahoma. I had a patient who was ripping out mold. He was doing a DIY remediation. And I was like, bro, please let the professionals do that. And it was a 5-acre property. And you're out here in Venice. I'm in Boulder County. It's like, Eric, the property's worth $80,000. And I felt like a total jackass because he can't pull a home equity line to finagle some money to get the professionals to do it. He gets bit not once, but twice by a recluse spider while doing a DIY remediation. Fortunately, he was on the biotoxin binding medicine, cholestyramine, Welchol. But those are your big five: algae blooms, seafood toxins, Listeria, Ciguatera, the two famous one, mold, actinobacteria, and endotoxin, and indoor air quality. And I know you and I talked a little bit about that. Lyme tick and co-infection and recluse spider venom. So now I got the exposure. So in Dr. Shoemaker's data set of 10,000 biotoxin ill, 95% were genetically susceptible. So they were born with the statistical likelihood to go into chronic inflammatory responses, cytokine storms, just Arnold and the Predator, just fire bullets, right? Your own immune system going bananas. Only 5% did not have the genes, and they were in wildly water damaged buildings. So really egregious, overt stuff, right? To put that into context, the HLA for rheumatoid arthritis, only about 60% of Caucasians in trials have the genes to say statistically likely to get RA. So there's a massive, celiac and CIRS have massive genetic predispositions. If you're born with those genes, it's not if, but when you're going to get into exposure and highly likely trigger CRS. You're still fine. But then there was what was called a priming event. So I have the genes, I'm in a moldy kindergarten, now I get COVID or the flu. And that was the final push to turn on the full expression genes that were sitting there dormant, little factories, never manufacturing inflammatory widgets, now turn on. Now I get out of that kindergarten, my parents move to the other side of town where there's a brand new school, and I go into first grade. Those genes are still turned on. So this isn't mold allergy where you remove yourself from that building and your immune responses turn off, right? Grass pollen allergy. You get through the season and your immune system calms down.
Right.
That's why the word chronic inflammatory responses. And that again will rip through every single body system. So you can have neurological issues like brain fog, fatigue, depression, suicidal ideation, disperceptions of thought, word finding issues, focus concentration, ADD, CIRS all day. Not all ADD is CIRS. A lot of them are. Depression all day. Musculoskeletal system, gastrointestinal issues, infertility, losing babies. These can all be potentially CIRS.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions, and that was so thorough and clear. Of all of these inciting factors, these biotoxins, one, which one is the most common?
Yeah.
And two, isn't the system smart enough to just stop the cytokine storm? Shouldn't it stop, like you said, when we remove ourselves, or when we got treated for the black recluse spider, or the wound healed, or we moved away from the sewage leak? What is the thing that's telling our system to keep going chronically?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So in those patients with the HLA, they can't get the biotoxin out of their system without the garbage truck, cholestyramine, Welchol, colesevelam, the medicines that come through the intestines and take that biotoxins to the toilet. Natural binders don't work. We've never proven a natural binder to work. I'm the naturopathic doctor who would love something natural to work. Bentonite clay, nope. Cellcore products, nope. And I have nothing against that company. They don't lower inflammatory cytokines from CIRS. Zeolite, the exact opposite organic chemistry in charge as colesevelam, cholestyramine, Welchol. The fancy organic term for that is quaternary ammonium. That's the molecule with all the trade names. Activated charcoal, all of them. And Dr. Shoemaker back in the day trialed all of these, and the cytokines didn't come down. So what happens is in that blue collar liver, in the people with the HLA, you process the biotoxin, you package it as biotoxin laden bile, you eat some fat, fat triggers the gallbladder to dump out that biotoxin laden bile, but there's no garbage truck. So imagine putting your trash on the curb and the garbage truck didn't come through the neighborhood that week. So then you pull that trash can full back into your garage, and then you pour more trash on it if you're still in exposure. If you're not in exposure, you at least have a clean building, you still got that full trash can. And that's called enterohepatic recycling or gut liver recycling, where all that biotoxin laden bile gets reabsorbed, about 95% of it, into the liver, triggers your immune system all over again. So what's so nice, the two steps of the Shoemaker protocol are remove patient from biotoxin exposure, get them out of what's kicking them in the shins. Then number two is cholestyramine, Welchol, pull the remaining body's biotoxins that your liver, gallbladder are so desperately and generously putting on the curbside. But if you don't pull them out, doodle-doo, I'm still inflamed and want to jump off a cliff.
Yeah.
Right. And we're like, no, you are worth it. You need to stay here. We need the joyous, creative, productive version of you, kicking ass for your own life, your family, society. We need you, right? To pay into the Ponzi scheme of Social Security. Like, if you're not healthy, who's going to pay my Social Security? Right. So we need people to get screened for CIRS and understand that they could have been in a moldy kindergarten 8 years ago and still be sick today because their body, isn't that crazy? So yeah, the oldest CIRS patient I ever diagnosed was 83. The first time I diagnosed, she had fatigue since she's 11 years old. And what's so badass about her is she still managed to carve a life. This woman has agency. She would play the ukulele. She hung out with her church friends. She taught in school for 40 years, but she was exhausted with headaches for over 7 years of her life. She had CIRS before Dr. Shoemaker discovered CIRS, which just blows my mind, right? And that's what we get to be a part of. We get to be a part of this legacy that's literally making medical discoveries to help prevent, treat, and eradicate neurodegenerative diseases.
So that's where I wanted to go. You mentioned before biotoxins from the sewer leading to things like Parkinson's.
Yes.
The endotoxins, you said.
Yep.
Can a chronic inflammatory response through the immune system affect the brain to lead to neurodegenerative diseases like you mentioned Parkinson's? What about Alzheimer's, things like that? I love creatine. I took it when I was younger in fitness and really wanting to put on muscles. And for me, it was only about muscles for a long time until the research started really coming out and popularizing around mental health and brain. It's so important. And creatine is not just for athletes. It's for people that are wanting to support their cognition as well as their strength and recovery. It's something I take every single day, minimum 5 grams for myself. And something that might surprise you is that creatine is one of the most underrated supplements in women's health, especially when it comes to hormones, muscle health, bone health, brain function, mood, energy, almost everything that women are looking for in this world. Creatine is there. Now, most women are missing out on the benefits of creatine because it's marketed for bodybuilders, right? And that's what I thought when I was younger. But the studies are now coming out showing that it can support not only the muscle, but as we age across the board, especially for women going through menopause, it's going to help maintain that muscle mass, that bone density, and that is crucial for longevity. It's going to help the cognition stay sharp. And creatine supplementation in perimenopausal, but especially postmenopausal women can improve muscle size and function. And we're not talking about being bodybuilder jacked up. No, we're talking about being toned and healthy. And when you combine it with resistance training, it can positively affect bone health, and that is essential for longevity. I love Priori's Creatine Plus with taurine. It's not just creatine, it's got one of my favorite amino acids in the world, taurine. And not all creatine is created equal. This is the innovative combination of creatine monohydrate and taurine that is going to support both your physical performance and your cognitive function. So each scoop, you get 5 grams of creatine and 400 milligrams of taurine to support muscle growth and increase muscle strength, muscle support, and recovery. It's going to reduce muscle damage and soreness. And with Priori, always, I know I'm getting a transparent, clean, high quality, high integrity company. Priori Creatine Plus is tested by the Clean Label Project against 200 nasty contaminants like heavy metals, pesticides, dioxins, BPA. And guess what? You could scan the QR code and see the results for that specific batch. This is transparency at the highest level. It's the most ultra pure company that I have found. In an unregulated industry, Priori rises to the top with third-party testing and publishing everything to give you confidence. So if you want to try my favorite creatine that I put in my morning smoothie every single day, you're going to get 20% off of your Priori order. Get yourself some Creatine Plus. Go to priori.com/DRG and use my code DRG. That is PUORI.com/DRG. Let me ask you something. How has your sleep been lately? I mean, really think about it. When you have a truly restful sleep, how do you feel? For me, I wake up feeling recharged. My excitement for the day is at an all-time high. My brain is focused. I'm ready to take on the day. And most people are probably not getting a good night's sleep, a good quality sleep. And the body is desperately asking for it. And we feel it when we wake up. I've had the Birch mattress for many years now. I think it's like 3 or 4 at this point, maybe 4 or 5. And I can honestly say, yes, it is the best bed I've ever had. My partner loves it. It's transformed my sleep. It is comfortable. And when you're sleeping with a partner on it, when they're rolling around like a wet shirt in the dryer, it's not really waking you up because it has awesome distribution of weight and sensation. But yeah, it's really transformed my sleep from feeling comfortable knowing that it's not off-gassing any chemicals to being a really comfortable bed. But what really matters to me most is why I chose Birch in the first place. Replacing the bed is one of the first things that I recommend to people when they want to up-level their home. And there's harmful off-gassing chemicals in synthetic mattresses that we breathe in for the life of the bed. And these chemicals can really disrupt your sleep, your respiratory system, over time your immune system, your nervous system, your brain. But Birch takes a completely different approach than most bed companies. They source only the best, highest quality. We're talking about organic fair trade cotton without any pesticides sprayed on it, organic wool that is ethical, natural latex that are not buzzwords, right? These are not like greenwashing. We're talking about sourced straight from nature with high integrity and ethics. The wool makes it hypoallergenic and there's no synthetic treatments, no chemical flame retardants, which are really, really common in a lot of conventional beds. Rest assured, literally, that these mattresses are non-toxic and designed with good breathability. So if you're sweating at night, there's good airflow. And something that really impressed me is that Birch actually owns their own manufacturing facility, and they rely on really skilled craftspeople to give you the highest quality. They're not trying to outsource to the lowest bidder. They're really intentional on every step. And the best part is that you can get this mattress for a 100-night risk-free trial. It's going to be shipped directly to your door, rolled up in a box. It's easy to set up, and they so strongly believe that you're going to love it that they give you a 25-year warranty. So if you're really in the business of looking for a new mattress, it's time. Your mattress is getting clumpy, it's uncomfortable, there's a weird smell coming from it. It's time to throw it away and invest in a quality mattress that is going to last you a long time. I want you to go to birchliving.com/healthyself and you're going to get 27% off site-wide. That's birchliving.com/healthyself, HEALTHYSELF, and you're going to get 27% off.
Yes. I am on the professional ride of a lifetime. And I tell people and patients, like, my superpower as a clinician is honesty. Like, I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the room. Dr. Shoemaker is a genius. I haven't met too many geniuses. Love or hate Elon, the dude's operating another clip. That's when you hang out with Dr. Shoemaker, that's where he's at. He's playing chess. We're all down here playing checkers, right? And what we learned was chronic inflammatory response syndrome creates brain on fire. So now I light up these cells in my brain called microglia. And you ask, doesn't our body have the ability to turn that off? No. And the same gosh darn thing happens with concussion. So CIRS and concussion turn on these immune cells in the brain called microglial cells. And once they turn on, you can turn them off with aggressive intervention that has to involve addressing the underlying cause. So if someone's got sleep apnea and their brain is getting cut off from oxygen, you don't fix the apnea, you're not turning off their microglial. If someone has microglial turned on from Friday Night Lights football and they keep concussing over and over again, I always think of Junior Seau when I talk about this, right? The San Diego Chargers, jocund, upbeat, just the guy you want on your team. Hits like a truck, leadership in the locker room, and then one day puts a shotgun to his chest and says, I shot here so that you could study this. And one day he's just depressed. What happened? His microglia are on. Now he's got brain on fire. That eventually turns to brain on ice. And brain on ice is my brain cells no longer make energy and my brain cell shrinks and atrophies. And there's 3 things that look like the same cytokine storm, the same inflammatory pattern. SIRS, Systemic Inflammatory Response Syndrome. That's people who are sick as hell in the hospital right now with bacterial endotoxin. We're praying for you. We need to see that through. But after you get out of the hospital, you have to say, I have more inflammation to dampen. I didn't die, but my brain is still on fire, right? CIRS, Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome from biotoxin exposure, and TBI, traumatic brain injury. So we are trying to get in with the NFL right now to take some aspects of the Shoemaker protocol and say, can we apply this to brains to regrow atrophy from TBI, from traumatic brain injury?
Do the people who have the concussions have to have the HLA gene?
We don't know. That is such an astute question. Yeah, we are trying to compare, like, is it just a separate illness concussion that has patterns of CIRS? Is the guy who got hit in the head 50 times but doesn't have Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, from the NFL? Could he handle the moldy locker room?
Right.
Is there a 1 + 1 = 3? We don't know. The last step of the Shoemaker protocol, vasoactive intestinal peptide nasal spray, is regrowing gray matter atrophy. We're regrowing the frickin' brain on a pre and post brain MRI with Neuroquant. I'm not like muscle testing you being like, bro, your brain's better. I could feel it. We're doing hardcore pre and post, third-party computer reading your brain. Doesn't get more objective, right? And no skin in the game. The Neuroquant doesn't care about you. It just is, I don't cry. It's a Terminator, right? Pre and post. That only works. Vasoactive intestinal peptide only works if you got out of exposure. If you took adequate cholestyramine well call. All the anti-aging docs just want to jump in bed with VIP. Here, it's easy. The complexity of this illness is talking about the moldy youth group church that your kid's going to, the community center where your kid's playing basketball, the moldy high school, right? Your mom's house, who you drop your 3-year-old off to for free daycare, right? You're going to tell her you're full of stagibotris, right? So that's, again, superpower, honesty. We're never going to dumb down and tell what you want to hear to a patient. We're going to talk about what is with grace and love and empowerment. If panic and worry worked to heal, I would endorse it all day. I've been in healthcare for 30 years, private practice for 20 years. Panic doesn't change the scenario. And it often makes it worse. Like we were talking about our friend, where you can get traumatized by this illness.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm blown away by the concussion piece. You still got me thinking about that because I had this one friend, she rode horses. She was like a Vogue model, like across the board Vogue model. And she fell off the horse, hit her head, and she just swelled up. Her whole body was inflamed for 4 years. For 4 years, she couldn't work at the prime of her career. And we're talking about like 30 pounds of just fluid. And the one doctor she found up in Canada had told her, hey, why hasn't any doctor looked at this concussion that happened? And I'm not sure exactly, we lost touch, but I'm not sure exactly what happened, but it was incredible because now you got me thinking, I wonder if she had CIRS. I wonder if something was activated with that or mimicked something.
Totally.
The microglia in her brain was mimicking CIRS or set off the microglia response or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was in a moldy house and she got a concussion and both, you know, it's wild to think about. And then you got me thinking about if the NFL players who are committing suicide have HLA gene mutations.
We have to fund that. And
It would be incredible to find out.
I'm starting to connect with the right people to connect me with the right people, right? And I don't need anything out of that except for the guilt that I do a lot of martial arts. I love seeing a head kick knockout. It's like movement symphony, you know? And as a doctor, I'm like, and that person just got some microglial kicked on and might result in brain atrophy. So I'm actually working with, trying to connect with a couple of the UFC guys to see if we can do some of this stuff too, like with the NFL players. We need men and women to be able to tackle each other, wrestle, ride horses, jump off cliffs on skis. It is part of managing your crazy as a robust teenager with adequate testosterone, male and female, right? But it's no joke when someone gets kicked in the head by a horse or they fall off a horse or they fall off the balance beam. And women get more blown off, in my experience, in those sports relative to the concussed football player. And the work on CTE really brought that to the forefront,
Incredible.
right? But you are absolutely right that your friends, doctors, should have said, what was the timeline on this?
Yeah.
She got whacked upside the head. And I undeniably get value out of animal research for human beings, but I feel conflict about torturing animals to do that. So I usually just try and say grace before I read a medical paper that involves animal studies. I usually say thank you to humans who have participated in the clinical trials that allow us to pay forward their suffering and make something of it. But if you want to put a rat into leaky gut, there's two ways you do it. You whack its head and the gut goes leaky, or you inject it with bacterial endotoxin, the same biotoxin as inhalation from sewer gas. What's wild about the leaky gut is if you zap the vagal bundle before you hit the rat, the gut doesn't go leaky. Why are we not starting to say maybe we do vagal bundle stimulation in a concussion patient? Right? There's so many ways we can push the envelope if we just get off the greedy ass windfall billion-dollar profit drug. No one drug is going to shut down a multifactorial cause of dementia.
Yeah.
Right? So Parkinson's patients, they have more apnea. Concussion patients, they have more apnea. So like an average day for us is you got multiple concussions in lacrosse while traveling all over the world and staying in moldy hotels while going to an Ivy League school with affluent parents. And that don't matter. So what I want to say about your friend is Vogue models get sick too. Rich people get sick too. Everyone deserves access to high quality problem solving healthcare. And the only difference is having money makes it easier to do, right? Everything else is the same. You need the same grit. You need the same people to support you. You need the same doctors that don't gaslight you and actually deep dive into the underlying causes that could be causing your headache or your joint pain or your fatigue or your dementia or your depression, et cetera. But rich people get sick too.
Everyone does, right?
Everyone gets sick.
Mansions could be moldy.
Always. I tell people all the time, more money, more problems? Hell no. Having money is so great to do a remediation or a Ford VIP to regrow your brain. More square footage, more problems.
Right.
So these patients sometimes come with the 7,000 square foot compound, and I get it. We want the big Christmas with all the grandkids, but no one used the East Wing bathroom for a year. Now that P-trap dried out and you have sewer gas pouring into the house, right? You also, who wants to clean something like that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So well feng shuied, 2,000 to 4,000 square foot home can be a great compound.
That's
if you
right.
have 16 grandkids,
Nice and cozy.
Nice and cozy.
So, you got me, I know about mold. Actually, so many people here viewing and listening, we've spoke about mold so much.
Yeah.
But the sewer gas is an interesting one that
Yeah.
never really crossed my mind. Inhalation of a sewer leak, and where are they mostly found? In your personal bathroom in your
100%.
home, or is it walking outside over a sewer pipe or something?
Let's give you a couple of shouts. So I run a conference, CIRS. It's an annual conference dedicated to eradicating this illness. And that room is full of predominantly healthcare providers and environmental professionals under one roof. I need to know what the plumber does. The plumber needs to know the basics of what I do. I need to know what an indoor environmental professional inspector does. I need to know what a remediator does. I need to know the basics of the building envelope. If you told me I was going to get out of naturopathic medical school and study journals on building envelopes and how to build a proper wall at 8,000 feet elevation in Colorado, I'd say you're smoking crack.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, what are you talking about? That's what it takes to solve and resolve mystery illness, right? So we have these people under one roof, and one of our exhibitors this year was American Leak Detection. I share them not because I get some kind of kickback, because they do have national offices that do a plumber smoke test. So what we do is we do a Swiffer cloth dust test that will look for the DNA of water damage building molds, actinobacteria, and endotoxin. And if we find that, we have to say, where's the endotoxin coming from? So you'll enlist a plumber smoke test. Nationally, it's about $500 to $1,500. In Timbuktu, middle of Kansas, you should pay more like $500. In Venice, in the Bay Area, you're $1,500. You got that Cali tax on there, right? They're going to pump a non-toxic theater gas into your sewer main and block the city sewer direction. You tell your neighbors, my house isn't on fire. I'm pumping theater gas because your stacks on top of the roof should then smoke out. Places we found it, P-traps all day. A P-trap is that YouTube, not where you're watching this pod, but that little YouTube under your sink. Simply profoundly simple. Water in your P-trap prevents you from smelling neighbor Johnny's poop, right? That's what that's about. Those dry out. They also crack. Sometimes they need a little quarter turn. The smoke might pump out of there. We had a patient who built a gorgeous home. Son came in, started having seizures. The builder turned the radiant floor heating to 110 degrees to dry out the concrete slab. Great idea. Takes about 1 to 2 years for concrete slabs to dry out, but instead we just slap luxury vinyl plank over it 2 days after it was poured. 1 year later, you're going to find microglial growth under there, right? So this kid goes in the house getting seizures. We can't find where the endotoxin in the dust is coming from. So I said, plumber smoke test. 4 of the 7 bathroom toilets start smoking at the baseline. When they turned up the heat, they melted the wax ring for setting the toilet. Wax rings are notorious. Genevieve, my practice partner, she had a patient where the wall just started smoking. We send over a remediation team. There's a poop pipe plumbed to nowhere. There's a shit pipe with fecal wax embedded in the insulation in the wall.
That's not supposed to be there.
That's not supposed to be there. If it's there, it means maybe someone was going to put, another story on the building and connect plumbing later to another bathroom. You're supposed to put a cap on that. That completely seals that, right? Septic systems, kitty litter boxes, Old Yeller. This was a recent one. We had one patient whose dog was sick with diarrhea, poops on the laminate floor. They clean it up. The wife keeps getting headaches if she's walking by there. They finally listen to us and rip up the floor. 2 cow chips of dog diarrhea underneath there.
But how did it get under there?
It seeped through the seals.
Wow. And it dried up.
And it dried up. There it was. Speaking of horse people, should you bring your chaps in your saddle into your house? Or should you have a decon? Right? So septic systems. Once in a while, you walk into a property and you'll say, it smells like poop. Remember? Superpower, honesty. If you smell shit, they're shit. Right? So they had, one of my patients had just a piece of flagstone on the access to their septic. You're supposed to have a manhole cover with a little rubber seal that goes, and if you need to service the septic, you undo it, right? So this has been a human story since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
The Thames River, people used to poop into poop chutes from their office building into the Thames before we had good plumbing. Then they poured tar down it because the whole city smelled like a diaper, right? That Thames is one of the most toxic rivers on the planet. Still.
Wow.
Yes. You guys sometimes have discharge of fecal material into the ocean here, right? And then what do algae blooms feed on? Nitrogen and heat, right? Like people are worried about all these things from global warming. I'm worried about the algae blooms. Like when things get hotter, you bloom.
And that's also inhaled.
And actually, yes, it was Peter Haney at University of New Hampshire. So how this worked is I had a teacher who I would have bet my left kidney her school was moldy. We tested her school, we tested her house, nothing. We could not figure out where her CIRS was coming from. I said, what do you do in the summer? You're a teacher. She goes, I fly out to New Hampshire. And I recreate on Lake Winnipesaukee. So I put cyanobacteria, Lake Winnipesaukee, in this thing called Google, raging algae blooms. Higher rates of ALS around the Lake Winnipesaukee. So I call the professor, Peter Haney, University of New Hampshire, who's publishing on his findings around the pond. He goes, Eric, who you really want to talk to is Elijah Stommel. He's an MD, PhD out of Dartmouth. Little ragtag school over there. So frickin' Dr. Stommel makes time for me. And he sees more ALS patients than I know out of any doctor on the planet. And he's studying the higher rates of ALS around regions of algae blooms.
In all bodies of water.
In bodies of water with algae
Wow.
blooms.
Wow.
So about 2 years ago, and Peter, Dr. Haney, PhD, is starting to publish on this, and it aerosolizes. So think Aquanet hairspray in the 80s. That's so you don't have to like swim and recreate with toxic algae blooms.
Can just live by it, and it can go up in the air.
You know who wants to talk about this? No one. You know why? Lakeside properties, 3 mil in certain regions, 10 mil in other regions.
So it's crazy to me because no doctor is really talking about this.
No.
You're saying that it's possible as we move even towards global warming that the algae blooms and its effect on chronic inflammatory response syndrome can be one of the biggest threats right now to our health.
And in particular, ALS.
ALS.
Violently neuroinflammatory. And I don't see a ton of ALS, but every patient I've seen is dead in 18 months.
From
ALS. From
Super
when they're ALS. I caught my first ALS patient, they barely had a foot drop. I said, there's something weird there. Their creatinine kinase was going up, which means their muscles was starting to destroy. Also started statin. Statins actually create myalgia or muscle pain. Was that a secret sauce of multifactorial? We don't know, right? But he was gone in 18 months. So what we're doing with Parkinson's, which is beyond exciting, is my first medical paper I ever published was with Dr. Shoemaker last year, like official. I've done write-ups in journals, but not like a hardcore medical paper. And it was basically, there is a pattern on gene transcription. So have you ever heard genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger? So you're born with a celiac gene. If you never eat gluten, are you waking up celiac? No, you grew up on the Galapagos Islands, you're fishing for and eating tubers and berries, you're never going celiac. Same thing with CIRS. If you have the HLA and you never get into exposure, you're not going to wake up CIRS. So, so genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger. We found a pattern in Parkinson's. Some Parkinson's are CIRS, and that pattern is called a triple positive. And there's 3 sets of genes that turn on and transcribe. So when a gene starts making proteins, for better or worse, you can make proteins like pancreatic enzymes, amylase, protease, lipase to digest fats, proteins, and carbs. You can make inflammatory proteins. But this triple pattern was clusterin gene, at least 3 coagulation genes or blood clotting genes, manufacturing proteins that clot the blood, and these tubulin genes. Tubulins are the highways, the tubes that deliver nutrients and ions to the brain cell. When tubulin A4A or tubulin BB1 turns on, you literally destroy the tunnel, the tube that delivers nutrients and ions to your brain cell, and the brain collapses. Think the UN has supplies here. There's a ravine with a bridge. There's a starving tribe over there. We're about to deliver supplies. We blow up the bridge. Tribe starves, right? That pattern is called triple positive. And it is the cause of some Parkinson's. We've seen that pattern as old as turn on as young as 3 years old.
Really?
As young as 3 years old. So left untreated, that person's going to be Parkinson's. The Shoemaker protocol, applied in earnest, turns off that pattern. So for the first time in my healthcare career, we can see a neurodegenerative disease from miles away before it pulls into the Parkinson's station and literally redirect it. We had 10 active Parkinson's patients in that study. They dramatically improved from the Shoemaker protocol, but we did not put the Parkinson's genie all the way back into the bottle. So my whole point on that, why we went there is we need to figure out what that pattern is for ALS, because by the time you see the earliest warning sign of ALS, they're gone 18 months later. So we need to see the ALS train way before it pulls into the station. And again, Elijah Stommel and Dr. Richie Shoemaker are 2 doctors' work. I'm trying to hybridize, coalesce, bump into each other so that we can see, is there a specific pattern on genetic transcription that shows up before the symptoms do, right? So, and you probably have heard this in cancer, like if you have breast cancer, that process was happening 20 years ago.
For sure.
Right. It's just now we see the cells coalesce to be a tumor.
Early on process, but I never thought about Parkinson's in 3 years old.
Yeah. Well,
Which is
the
incredible.
pattern,
The pattern, of
right?
course.
Yes. The
pattern.
very earliest inflammatory, and that really gives credence to how long it takes till the other shoe finally drops, and now you have tremors and masking.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is happening 20 years ago, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Yeah. My grandfather died of Parkinson's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I've seen it when I was a kid. I didn't understand what was happening.
And because of your world, you know what the number 2 symptom is of Parkinson's, second to the motor? Anxiety.
The anxiety.
So you'll see these just incredible men who were running companies that employed people and created jobs and coached soccer teams, and and then all of a sudden they're this frail shell of themselves. When I schedule an hour appointment for someone, it's 90 minutes with a express Parkinson's patient, because everything takes longer, and you don't want to be in that doctor mode where you're like, I'm running late, bro. You stress them out, and you just got to say, you know what?
I've seen the anxiety.
You've seen the anxiety. Yeah. So that's what the reason I bring that up is like, that's not your grandpa. That's the illness. Right. That's the neuroinflammation.
Just, I was so little, but I remember the hands, and he didn't talk much.
Yeah.
But when he did, it was a lot of impatience coming from him, and that must have been the anxiety.
That's the angst.
Yeah, like he had a really short fuse. I was like, what's happening
100%.
to Grandpa? But I only knew him like that my whole life.
Yep.
I didn't know him healthy, but it's
now
wild.
The question for you is, should we do a genie on you?
Well, that's what I was thinking.
And see if that pattern's there, and prevent that from being the next family member.
Of course. For the viewers and listeners, we connected because of my history of mold illness and triggers from mold. Yeah. But you still got me thinking about the sewer endotoxins, and you got me thinking about the red algae blooms. Because I was only really focused on mold.
Yes.
And it doesn't always have to be mold.
Yes.
This is what people you have to listen to that. It's not just mold. It's these factors that we're talking about.
We're in a bromance, but when you anchor this interview, you just say things that are so important for listeners to hear. And when people call this mold illness, it drives me crazy because it is so myopic. And in the cases of CIRS, 42% are from actinobacteria, 28% are from endotoxins, 7% are from mold.
Wow.
So in the 10,000 plus data sets we have, data between our clinic, Dr. Pegnatulio's clinic, Dr. McMahon's clinic, Ellen Grunning, Dr. Shoemaker, a lot of my peers and my crew, mold is very real, and it's lowest on the list of driving CIRS. And we have houses all the time that have actinobacteria, water damage building molds, and endotoxin or sewer gas problems. And you have to be careful for your listeners. If they're not doing peer-reviewed reproducible stuff, run away. In the holistic flakeathon around this illness, and I'm a naturopathic doctor, I'm going to tell you need to challenge everyone politely. If they're doing urinary mycotoxins on you, that is not a test to confirm CIRS. Everybody has urinary mycotoxins, and it's not called CUMS, chronic urinary mycotoxin syndrome. It's not called CABS, chronic antibody syndrome. There's nothing to kill. You don't need an antifungal azole. It is an inert, dead biotoxin that's triggering your immune responses, and it needs capture and removal. And then the immune system calms down. Right.
And not by, like you said, the binders of the world, like the
right.
chlorella, the activated charcoal.
Yeah. So that is so frustrating to me because I worked my ass off for organic chemistry. When I was in pre-med, that was like your weed out course. If you could handle that course, it was saying, we think you might have the rigor to have the responsibility of doctoring someday. Right. And you can't, unless you went to Hogwarts and you got a wand and you're Dr. Potter, you can't turn activated charcoal into cholestyramine, cholecalciferol, Welchol. That is called alchemy. We do organic chemistry, right? And it's so frustrating that doctors, peers of mine who took the same organic chemistry, they're just having such a hard time wrapping their head around that. And it's frustrating because my goal is to see everything through the lens of the patient. What is the best for their time, money, and energy? And the best for their time, money, and energy is to focus everything on graduation. You want to solve and resolve their case. You want to take their symptoms. You want to set up that differential diagnosis, which should be a list of not what you have, but why you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then you should use objective labs, right? Urinary mycotoxins never sorted healthy people versus sick patients. Everyone has them, right? A 3D digital mammogram says Susie has a breast tumor. Jenny does not.
Yeah.
If a lab can't do that, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, don't spend your patient's time, money, or energy on it, right? And you don't need to kill things. You need to capture and remove. And then you have to get down and dirty with the buildings. And I think you got that where you're like, oh, and if I just do a hurts me too, and I forget the endotoxin, can't tell you how many times people aren't dealing with mold. They're just getting sewer gassed.
It's wild.
It's wild.
It's wild because mold is the big thing.
It's the buzzword. And that's why people still put it in their descriptors and their IGs and all that stuff, right? It's hot, it's buzzy.
You can make money on a company that tests for mold, and there's new ones launching left and right. It's pretty wild. So thank you for putting that in perspective, that the actinobacteria is the biggest one. Predominant. So, and this is just bodies of water that we're being exposed to.
Bodies of water, anytime you have, we didn't learn from the Three Little Pigs story. So we literally build with paper and pulp, right? Paperback sheetrock, pulp wood. There are spores in the Mojave Desert. So you can't say, oh, we live in Arizona, we'll never have CIRS, right? You don't have a problem until you have food and water. Even if you have the microbes and you have the food, they need a glass of water through high humidity or a supply line to the ice maker, or my kid flooded the bath tub, right? And on and on and on. Now it can drink the glass of water while it eats up the cellulose and amplifies. And no building will ever be sterile. You're trying to keep your building at statistically low levels that doesn't trigger those genes from expressing chronic inflammatory responses.
It's okay. So let's say the person goes through this whole Shoemaker protocol. They start feeling better. They've removed, for all intents and purposes, the mold or water damage in their home. They made sure they're not going out for the algae blooms. They're definitely smelling for poop anywhere, and everything's good. But what if they rent another home on the other side of town? Can it all activate again?
Absolutely.
So literally home to home.
Yes.
What do we do? Because it can become overwhelming.
So I say this is a vicious yet treatable illness. And gratitude is the attitude. The first thing I am so excited about as someone who has the 11352B dreaded multisusceptible gene, I am not dreaded. My prognosis is not dreaded. Dr. Shoemaker used those words to denote, if you have this gene and you turn on CIRS and your healthcare provider doesn't know it, you're screwed. You're doctor hopping. You're going to get gaslit left, right, front, and center. People are going to say, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out with your physical therapy and your therapist referral. And I'm a huge proponent of therapy, but not while you're still getting kicked in the head with inflammation. I want you seeing your therapist without apnea. I want you seeing your therapist without CIRS so you can actually process stuff. Otherwise, it's never ending neuroinflammatory driving depression and anxiety. Right. So, and that's where with our therapists locally, we work as a team. And a lot of what our therapist referrals are about are agency, grit, choice, how you can see this as I'm so cursed and moldy, blah, it'll never vacation.
For sure.
Or you can see this as I'm going to punch that bully in the effing mouth. And I got the right leader in, Phil Jackson over there, Dr. D, and I am Michael Jordan, and I can dunk and dribble and shoot. I just need someone to help me call the right plays once in a while, and we're going to win some championship rings. So now I feel better. When the Dorniger tribe travels, I'm going to put into Google, I love this woman, Miadahl, Miadahl, new construction hotel, Irvine, California, Miadahl. And she brings me the new construction hotels up. Then I cross-reference that hotel with Travel Weekly. So now I'll do Courtyard Marriott, Irvine, Travel Weekly, and it will tell me year built.
On Travel Weekly?
Yes.
It's like a database?
Yes, like a database for business travelers. And when I teach doctors, it also tells you meeting rooms and size and all that stuff, right? So I tell companies who want me to teach for them, like, don't even call me if you're not going to get me a clean hotel. I'm not interested.
Are hotels problematic right now?
If it's gotten water damage, and the older they are, the more statistically likely that when I was teaching in Seattle, in the W, in downtown Seattle, a guy in the gym was doing kettlebell swings with a barbell, hit the sprinkler head and the gym was on the 33rd floor.
Oh boy.
I'll never teach there again.
Oh boy.
Right. So we look for that and then we say, okay, we're going to go here. I'm all better. Our whole family is going to take Welchol or Colicevalam about 3 days before the trip, the entire time during, and about 3 days after. We're going to get into a little biotoxin walking through the airport, but we're at least in the biotoxin in, biotoxin out. If I'm not on the Welchol, I'm taking that in and I'm increasing the statistical likelihood I'll turn those genes back on. If a patient or my family comes back and 2 weeks after the trip, they're still taking Welchol, Colicevalam, cholestyramine, and they're still having symptoms, then you should call us again. But we are in the business of graduation, not codependency.
Yeah.
And we talked about this. I know we're winding down, but my mission in life is to change the healthcare system from what you have to why you have it. So if you're in a healthcare relationship where it's just selling you supplements, selling you modalities, and you're in the functional medicine hook, which is where you feel better, but you didn't address the underlying causes, it's time to reevaluate that. And I don't think you need to quit that doctor. You might bring them Dr. Shoemaker's work and say, I want to do this. And if they say, I'm not going to learn that for you, then that's your wrong person. If they're not willing to get down and dirty with the buildings and learn how to do endotoxin and actinobacteria. CIRS-X was literally built to train the next generation of indoor environmental professionals, lawyers, doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs, NDs, patient advocates. But I'm telling you, it's the patients that are leading the revolution. It's the patients. Power to the frickin' patient. But challenge your doctor to say, I need you to read this medical paper on CIRS. Could this be it? Can you learn how to screen? Can you learn how to do the proper confirmatory labs? Again, not urinary mycotoxins, not how you confirm CIRS, right? Hold our healthcare providers to task and say, I want to get solved and resolved. I want to graduate. But to your point, it's a lifestyle. So I'm not going to suck my thumb at home and go, I'm so moldy. But I'm also going to travel wisely. And about 1 out of 10 times, we get our butts kicked. Someone comes home with a bad migraine and joint pain and depression. And, for me, if I really pop off with CIRS, I get suicidal ideation despite living a charmed life, right? I'm having the professional experience of a lifetime where we're putting a dent in the changing healthcare from what you have to why you have it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's about taking an empowered, not panicked approach to a vicious yet treatable illness that can come with relapse. And that's when you go back to your air palace that you work so hard to get right. You take your high dose fish oil with some Welchol, Colicevalam, cholestyramine, 3 versions of the same med. You poop out the biotoxin reservoirs and your immune system calms down and resets.
Sounds like a miracle medicine for people who are
It's
suffering.
a miracle medicine.
It really, really does.
Yeah.
Before we close this out, for the people viewing and listening, what may be the symptoms that they are suffering with CIRS?
Yeah.
And that they should take the next step to follow through with their doctor, or we'll talk about where your clinic is.
Yeah, you bet. So screening for CIRS, there is an eye test called a visual contrast sensitivity test, and it's staring at blurred lines. You sit with your computer on full brightness in a well-lit room. You cut a string for 18 inches. You cover your right eye, you cover your left eye, and you look at these lines and you see if they're turning right, left, or up and down. That was the first objective test to sort you is or you is not biotoxin illness. And it was Kenneth Hudnell who was studying watersheds that Dr. Shoemaker bumped into. He said, tell me about this eye test you guys are doing. And they went to an eye conference. They got what's called a Heidelberg retinal blood flow meter. And it's a $150,000 tool that this company loaned Dr. Shoemaker. They're like, this guy's next level. Let's have him play with our tool for a little bit. The patients who were healthy, didn't need to see the doctor, would have 400 units of retinal blood flow and could see the blurred lines deeply into the columns. Are they going left, right, up, and down? The patients who had biotoxin exposure, regardless of the biotoxin, had half the retinal blood flow, 200, and could not see the blurred lines. He got them out of exposure, treated them with the cholestyramine well called cholestyramine binder, and they restored to 400 units of retinal blood flow and could see the blurred lines. And that's called clinical validation. That's what's different about Richie Shoemaker. People say, oh, he's gruff and tough. He is a genius who sees everything through the lens of what's best for the patient. That man has fulfilled his Hippocratic oath, right? And I am honored to be on his team, and figuring out neurodegenerative disease is so exciting. So that's the VCS. The other one is the clustered symptoms. It's 37 symptoms arranged into 13 groups. 16, and we talked about this on the phone, 16 of the 37 symptoms are neurological. Focus and attention, word finding ability, assimilation of new thought, tingling, numbness, memory issues, right? Hardcore neurological illness, right? And then the other 16 are like things that every illness could cause, like fatigue. But then there's some weird ones like static shocks, frequent urination, vertigo, right? And those are a quiz that you can administer in 7 minutes as a doctor, or you can take online. And if you say yes to one symptom in 8 of the 13 groups or more, those groups are called clusters, you have a 95% sensitivity to that your CIRS case. If you fail the VCS with that, that's a 98.85% sensitivity. There's a 1 in 20 chance we're wrong just on the questionnaire. There's a 1 in 50 chance we're wrong with a failed VCS. For kids under the age of 11, it's 6 out of 13. And I want to tell your listeners, if you have a child who has fatigue, tummy pain, and headache, and you can't attribute it to something else, they don't have celiac disease, for example, right? You are probably looking at a CIRS kid. If you have a child who is long out of daytime diapers but is still wetting the bed, and there's no UTI or funny business with things like molestation, you're probably looking at a CIRS kid. And I'll tell you, one of the most joyous things I got to do with my career is take the albatross of shame off a 15-year-old boy who's now a young man who's wetting the bed at his friend's moldy basement sleepover playing Xbox and looking into his eyes and saying, brother, it's not a spiritual problem. It's not a personality issue. You have corrupted biochemistry, and you have crashed a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, anti-peeing hormone. You have one more sip of water before bed, and you're going to have an accident, and it doesn't define you. And we have the treatment to eradicate that. So that's how we screen. And that's what we want the healthcare system to do. Be a screener. And then for you doctors out there, or PAs or MPs or NDs, whoever, come join our team and learn how to do this illness, because our clinic loves serving the world of chronic mystery illness, but there's not enough of us.
Not enough, man.
You know, we need good, high quality, rigorous, critical thinking, challenge everything politely providers to work their ass off for the chronically ill.
Amazing stuff, man. We got a lot more to talk about, but you got to go. You're a busy guy. Where do the people find you and your clinic?
So we're Roots and Branches Integrated Healthcare. We're in Louisville, Colorado, right out of Boulder, primetime buffs. And drdorninger.com. That's DORNINGER. And then my podcast is the Vitality Hour, where I often talk about CIRS and mold illness. We're looking forward to having you on to talk about bringing agency to this illness. And then my IG is at Dr. Eric Dorniger. And I usually just post stuff on medical papers, straightening out people doing things right, helping bring clarity to patients so that they don't get shyster charlatans and shenanigans touching their healthcare. They get graduation.
Big time. All right, man. Look, I really appreciate your work. I mean, there's people, I've been there. There's people who are desperate looking for answers. And the fact that there are some answers out there, and this might be the first time people viewing and listening hear something like this, and gives them hope. And I know better than anyone what hope feels like. And that hope is healing in itself. So viewers and listeners, if you think that you've been exposed to these biotoxins and your body has been suffering, maybe even since you were a kid, there is relief out there. Go get tested, go to the clinic, hook up with the doc, and go from there. All right, man. Thank you for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right.